The word aswang sounds simple, no? But behind that word is a whole universe of monsters. In English, people often call it a shapeshifter, a vampire, or a witch. But the aswang is more than that. In our folklore, it's a supernatural creature that feeds on human flesh, sometimes blood, sometimes unborn children. It can change its shape from a beautiful woman to a dog, a cat, a bird, or even a giant pig. And for centuries, the aswang has been the star of stories meant to frighten and sometimes to warn. These days, people call all kinds of monsters aswang, whether it's a vampire, a witch, a shapeshifter, even ghosts like the White Lady. But that's not accurate. The word aswang became a blanket term over time. In Spanish records, American times, and modern media, creatures like the manananggal, the tik-tik, or the balbal, they're actually different beings with their own stories. They're not all the same thing, and the real aswang is its own thing. At its core, an aswang is a person who looks like us, your neighbor, your friend, but secretly, they're a predator. To them, humans are food. They eat flesh, drink blood, or crave organs. So, where did this idea of the aswang come from? The fear of the aswang goes back centuries in the Philippines. Even as far back as the 1500s, Spanish priests wrote about witches and shapeshifters among the Filipino people. But the concept of the aswang as a human predator, someone living among us but secretly feeding on humans, might be even older than that. Some historians think the word aswang might come from the ancient Sanskrit word asura, which means demon. Others believe it evolved from local stories about shapeshifters and people practicing black magic. During Spanish colonization, the priests often used fear of creatures like the aswang to push people toward Christianity. Anything mysterious or supernatural was labeled evil or connected to the devil. And here's something wild. In the early 1900s, during the Philippine-American War, and even later during the Cold War, American forces reportedly used the aswang myth for psychological warfare. There's a story about soldiers draining blood from corpses just to make villagers believe an aswang had attacked, to scare them into surrendering. Imagine using folklore as a weapon. So the aswang legend isn't just about monsters. It's deeply tied to history, colonial influence, and even politics. Let's think about this for a moment. An aswang isn't always a monster with wings, claws, or fangs. The real terror behind the legend is the idea that an aswang looks completely normal. Your neighbor, a family friend, someone you'd never suspect. But secretly, they're hunting, killing, and sometimes eating human flesh. Psychologists believe that's why the aswang myth has survived for so long. It comes from a deep fear that monsters might actually be human. People use these stories to explain horrifying acts they can't understand. Because how could someone who seems ordinary commit such terrible crimes? In America, for example, people were shocked when they learned about Jeffrey Dahmer, a man who looked completely normal, quiet, polite. But in secret, he was a serial killer and a cannibal who murdered and ate his victims. In Filipino culture, someone like Dahmer would likely have been called an aswang. Because if a person does something so inhuman, people say they must be a monster. Sociologists look at the aswang legend in another way. They say these stories were used as tools to keep communities under control. Parents told children frightening stories about the aswang to make sure they came home before dark. Pregnant women were warned to stay indoors, especially at night, to protect themselves from creatures said to crave unborn children. But there's a darker side to these beliefs. People who were different, like single women, childless women, midwives, or those who preferred to live alone, were often accused of being aswang. Sometimes calling someone an aswang became a way to spread gossip, settle grudges, or blame someone when bad things happened, like sickness or sudden deaths in the community. Even today, some people still believe aswang exist. In certain provinces, people still share stories of neighbors who transform at night, or of mysterious sounds on rooftops. The idea that monsters might be living among us, that fear never completely goes away. Whether we call them aswang or serial killers, it's the same deep terror that there could be evil hiding behind an ordinary human face. You know, my friends, I remember something from when I was a kid that I'll never forget. In my hometown, there was a time when everyone was talking about a man named Villa Gracia. He was a local resident who lived alone in a small hut out in the province. People whispered that he was an aswang. The story goes, they said Villa Gracia was responsible for some very disturbing things happening around our town. When the authorities searched his hut, they didn't find any people there. But they did find dozens of slippers and shoes, all in different sizes. It was strange and frightening. Everyone wondered why they were there. They arrested him and took him to jail. I still remember how the whole town gathered outside the station. Even the police were curious. Everyone wanted to see the man people were calling an aswang. But here's the part that gives me chills even today. People said Villa Gracia didn't speak a word. He just sat in the corner of his cell, wrapped in his blanket. Then, right in front of everyone, he pulled the blanket over himself and disappeared. The only thing left was the blanket, whipping through the bars of the prison window. They said he flew away in it. There was a manhunt afterward, but Villa Gracia was never found. And there's another story like that many Filipinos know, the story of Maria Labo. Maria Labo is almost like an urban legend now. People say she was a woman who once worked overseas to support her family. When she came back home, she was different. The rumors started that Maria became an aswang. People whispered that she began preparing meals for her family. That tasted strange. Then one day, her husband supposedly discovered that the meat she was cooking wasn't what it seemed. The legend says Maria ran away and disappeared into the provinces. After that, there were reports of a woman seen traveling from town to town, always moving, always hiding. People said she had a scar across her face, which is where the name Labo comes from. Because in some Filipino languages, Labo can mean cut or scar. In many places, parents even warn kids, don't stay out late, or Maria Labo might come and get you. Whether the story is real or not, it shows how powerful the aswang legend still is today. Even in modern times, people share these tales because they touch on a deep fear that someone we trust could suddenly become something monstrous. Stories like Villa Gracia and Maria Labo keep the belief in the aswang alive. Even today, people talk about hearing strange sounds on rooftops or seeing shadows moving where they shouldn't. The idea that monsters might be living among us, that fear never completely goes away. So, after everything we've talked about, what is the aswang, really? Some people will say it's just a story, just a monster from old folk tales, something parents invented to scare children into coming home before dark, or to explain things no one could understand, like sickness, disappearances, or strange deaths. But for others, the aswang is much more than that. It's a symbol of betrayal, of hidden danger, of the terrifying idea that evil doesn't always have claws, wings, or red eyes. Sometimes evil smiles at you, shakes your hand, lives next door. The aswang myth shows a deep fear that monsters might walk among us, wearing the faces of ordinary people, that the person you wave to every day could secretly be someone capable of unspeakable things. Historians say the aswang also reflects centuries of pain, from colonial times when foreign powers used fear to control our ancestors, to the modern day when communities still whisper about things that go bump in the night. And yet, despite science, technology, and modern life, the aswang legend refuses to die. Today you'll find the aswang in movies, TV shows, and social media. You'll see it in horror stories and viral posts. It's become part of our cultural identity, both something we fear and something we're strangely proud of. But listen closely, my friends, because this is what I believe most of all. Aswangs are real. Maybe not always in the way the old stories tell us. Not always with wings, fangs, or supernatural powers. But there are creatures in this world who look like regular people, but hide darkness inside them. Watch the news long enough, and you'll see stories about people who do things so monstrous. It's hard to believe they're human. People who hurt others without remorse. People who vanish into the night, leaving only fear and unanswered questions behind. In the Philippines, we might call them aswang. In other parts of the world, they have different names: serial killers, predators, monsters, and that might be the scariest truth of all. So the next time you hear footsteps behind you in a dark street, or see shadows moving where they shouldn't, remember, the world is full of things we can't always explain. And sometimes the real monsters don't look like monsters at all. Maybe that's why, even today, we still whisper the old warnings. Be careful when you go out at night, because the aswang might be closer than you think. Thanks for watching, my friends. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you'll be updated when I post new stories. And hey, don't forget to check out my adventure in the novel Shattered Echoes, The Morning Lands by M.R. De Samson. And it's available now on Amazon and Kindle. Salamat gid mga kaibigan. That means thank you very much, my friends, in my language. And I'll see you next time.